And this is like a really small thing, but most of the time everyone just speaks in common. And obviously you have to have that. You can't have, all right, here's like, as an example, here's Thrall and Jin in a room. They can't speak to each other because they don't know the same language. That would be nonsensical. But it's that idea of like those being more separate cultures with differences. I think that's the main thing like Dragonflight's missing is the differences between cultures resulting in friction between them and how they get on. A lot of it is like, oh, hey, you show up with like the centaur and they're all just like, oh yeah, we know you're all happy, good people. There's no edge to your thing that we go, listen, we don't like how you get on here specifically, but we are going to like overlook that because we have a greater enemy to face.
I feel like multiple points of that. I mean, number one, just what comes to my mind is shameful display.
Yeah.
Right, where it's just like, yep, this is white boy doing Japanese. Now, Jim Cummings, good fella. But, you know, him doing Winnie the Pooh is, or not Winnie the Pooh, him doing, he is the voice of, well, is he the voice of Winnie the Pooh? He is the voice of Winnie the Pooh, yeah. Him doing the voice of Lore Walker Cho, like, it would sound decently similar to me just trying to do a knockoff Japanese accent.
The Mogu are dire, like.
The Mogu are, you know the Father Ted episode where he certainly...
Yes.
You're a racist now, Father. You know, if we were to actually replicate what they did in Mists of Pandaria, especially in modern day, we would be reamed on the internet. Yeah, and a bunch of people on of course, the Mongolian basket weaving forum would probably say something, I don't know, about baseness or something. Based on what? Now, thinking about a lot of TV shows, this is something I've noticed. It seems to be that audiences around the world are way more okay with like subs and stuff.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed 1899 recently, and it was just really cool how like, I mean, there's characters there pretending to be Japanese. They're actually from Hong Kong, but like they're speaking in Cantonese. Yes. And there are subs. The people there who are German, they will speak to each other in German. There will be subs, and it makes it feel so much more authentic and rich, which I really like. I think it would be really cool if for some of like their like voice acting in scenes, like they could do something like that.
Honestly, like
that would be really good. Now there would be issues because then it's like, well, how do you give someone subtitles for quest text?
Yeah,
you know, issues like that exist.
Like, there's a really cool thing they could have done there, and I don't remember it entirely. But imagine like the entirety of the dialogue between Malfurion and Tyrande in the cutscene that a lot of people still haven't seen. Imagine if that was like purely in Kaldari. Kaldari is in. What's the language called?
Right.
I can't remember. Here's the idea of that, or like Tauren speaking in Tauren to each other.
Almost all fucking Night Elf lines in this game are cringe as fuck, as far as I'm concerned. They're just going, Ishnu blah blah, and then they speak in English.
Yeah.
Now, you know, it works a little bit better when, let's say, it's Assassin's Creed 2, and maybe Ezio swears in Italian and then just shifts back into like English with an accent. But like, because the voice acting is not extremely stilted, unlike the vast majority of World of Warcraft voice acting, which unfortunately is really stilted. Yes. I definitely think from a direction, I don't know if it's a direction perspective. It could just be a real consequence of. I think some of direction also may be a consequence of. Well, okay, put it this way.
The only thing we know
when we had Ian McElhenney doing the voicing for our trailer. Now he is. I mean, and he is an extremely experienced, like, fucking true film and television actor. Like, he's incredible. Actually, do you know what it is? You know the way there's loads of games and it's like, you just sound like a fucking video game voice actor. And then you look at, like, FF14 and it's like, that person did The Archers and BBC Radio 4 and that person was in Coronation Street. Look at them fucking go!
I love Laura Billy in everything she voice acts, being Laura Billy. With an accent sometimes. Yeah, like, I can't remember the name of the character she played in Infamous Second Son, First Light. But I was just like, you're just Jane with an accent. What the fuck? Obviously, your voice sounds great and your like acting ability is great. But man, like the idea of voice training to sound profoundly different is something that I think a lot of voice actors in the games industry really lacks.
Like broadly speaking, I would really try to not work with video game industry actors in
Yeah.
the future. I'd really rather work with theater.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, theater, radio, that kind of thing. At least from my experience as somebody in an audience and then working with some actors, there's a large problem within World of Warcraft's voice acting of just really fucking drab, over enunciated. Everything is absolutely perfect. You can almost tell that the person is animating their mouth like this. And, you know, there's like, it's like, where's the grit? You know, people like Jennifer Hale, and it's like, you can feel the fucking... You know, you can feel the like 50 fags a day. I don't know if Jennifer Hale has ever smoked.
I imagine not as a professional voice actor.
Probably,
I imagine that's
From
voice
Software's
training.
VAs are insanely good.
Oh,
yeah,
like
have a think about that.
I remember, I think it was like John's first time hearing Blythe. And just like, Welsh people in Anders Town, they sound Welsh, and all of like their backdrop is Welsh. Or like, yeah, that's really culturally important, but it's also like the quality of voice and delivery in there is fantastic. I think one of the things about if I recall, did an FF14 VA go from big game names to theatre trained people? One of the best decisions that team made was in the jump from Realm Reborn to Heavensward to move away from traditional video game voice actors.
Are you an American voice actor? Sorry.
Yeah, they moved to English theatre actors and English radio actors and English actors, and that was the best decision they made for their voice. And it's like, it is, you can see that DNA in FF16 as well, where you listen to FF16 and you go, that's all really English, and that's because those people are like nothing against people who came up as voice actors in like the like Western anime dubbing scene or like the game dubbing scene. But nothing actually against them. But the quality of their output, because of how like they're educated and how they're trained, and the culture around that work, means the quality of output is so much worse compared to traditionally trained like theater stuff. I mean, it's like anytime you find any of the like FF14 voice actors who are you look back and go, oh yeah, well, what do you mean Luke Allen Gale had like a voice, like a bit for not Luke Allen Gale, sorry. Well, Luke Allen Gale did the Jaguar advert, which was insane. But there was Artbert's voice actor.
Yeah, man like Dempsey. Colgate boy.
Yeah, I know it's Clearasil.
Clearasil.
And that's insane. But you can tell, you listen to like you go, oh, these are like really, really good, classically trained actors, as opposed to more modern, just kind of I guess whatever way the culture.
I would put it this way: World of Warcraft's voice acting typically sounds like people going in and reading lines. It does not sound like they're performing a character.
Yeah.
You know, I think, funny enough, Patty's one of the few people I think who actually works.
Oh, Patty Mathens, that is genuinely like an incredible
she
performance consistently.
But like compare that to some of Taronda.
Yeah.
And actually most Night Elves and Night Elf Direction.
I think it was Portagage was really happy about the March of the Lich King Hearthstone expansion, because that's like a retelling of Arthur's like the March of the Lich King. And obviously they got Patty in to do the Sylvanas dialogue of her, you know, defending Silvermoon or defending the gates against Arthas. And you're like, yeah, that is a very, I mean, obviously Warcraft 3 was voice acted fine, but it was really strong.
Well, actually, looking here, where is the message in chat? Yeah, Akari is saying some of the voice acting in Dragonflight's dreadful. Yeah, I actually really like Dragonflight from an overall narrative perspective. Yep. I've got to say, like, Alex Straza feels like she has a very large, like, basically it sounds like she's constipated and she's just trying to, like, hold on to dear life while the lines are being delivered.
It's a little bit like you're... almost like they try a little bit too hard to sound ethereal or sometimes, as opposed to sounding like natural, adding a little bit of attention.
Hey, Matt. I am a dragon!
Yeah.
It's like you can't do that unless you're, you know, Matt Berry and can back it up with his incredibleness. I wish I could say New York City like that.
The only thing from the perspective of how Blizzard do it compared to other people, obviously they have their choice of voice actors and they'll go for like the heavy known voice actors because they have the budget and stuff. But I think it was Danuser talking recently about how they basically have very little voiceover direction and they give the actors a lot more freedom to do whatever they want. And there's times where that'll be perfect.
Yes.
But there's times where it's not going to be quite so perfect.
So, just on the off chance that anybody in the WoW team to do with any of this comes across this, what I'll say with our experience working with Ian, Now, you may not know Ian's name, but like, say, he played Sir Barristan in Game of Thrones.
You know the voice, like.
Yeah, you'll know the voice if you're watching Derry Girls. I mean, there he is. He's fucking great in that. He has a really remarkable ability to self-direct. Now, that's because, like, I think he's in his 70s. He's been acting for so many years.
50 years, like.
So, like, that does mean that he has this incredible ability to, I wouldn't say to, like, I mean, it is to self-direct. It's like, so when Thomas was, like, in doing the recording sessions, you know, we kind of say, like, right, this is what we're going for. And then it's just like, like, he has somehow worked out exactly what Thomas wants from this session, and he has just been able to deliver the whole fucking thing, and it's crazy. And I think you see that in the voicing for our trailer for The Pale Beyond.
Yeah, I think they're...
and I think, though, that is a situation where, like, him doing that direction works because he is so extremely experienced, and extremely experienced in roles that are not, you know, that are maybe not ones like in World of Warcraft, I suppose. And it was just really like, man, I don't know. It was fascinating. It's like a bit weird, like a bunch of us working with somebody who like goes and fucking nails it in Game of Thrones. That was insane. But it turns out he's Northern Irish. He likes working with local crews. He's super down on guy, which is really great. And then it's like, if that's not there, then the director really needs to help the actor, because you know, the thing is, the actor, and you know, we've been very critical here. I would think though that a lot of the actors who are working in things like this in WoW, they almost certainly do have it in them.
Oh, that's
right?
like
that's the thing.
yeah.
But like, the director needs to really know what they're getting out of the scene. And I feel like things just end up feeling quite stilted. I think as well, a lot of their audio, I don't know if it's the audio processing or something, but it often, I don't want to say that it's like, it feels too dead. But I don't know. Something about the audio processing to me feels like way too clean.
I think I could maybe say why, and that's because they lean really heavy on using what I think are fucking fantastic effects whenever they want to augment a voice. So I think they probably default to like a clean signal, and then they can add onto it, because stuff like Razageth sounds amazing, and Razageth's like direction in the raid is wonderful. It was, I mean, obviously they added some audio processing on top, but I think it was the how was it, Preheated did the video for the Echo, the intro video to the Risk World first, and they just used a bunch of like the boss lines. I was like, those are really cool lines, and they're delivered really well. It's just like, that's obviously because they're coming in like, be really hammy for a raid because you're a villain, go for that, and they're heavily processed. So it might be that. It might be that, which leaves everything else feeling a little bit too like, kind of, it's too directly played into your ears as if you're just hearing the recording, as opposed to added to the depth of the world in the way you're going to feel someone, in the way that like you half the time you talk to someone in a FromSoft game, they're talking through their helmet, or they're talking through a wall, or through bars, and you can hear, like, is it Siegfried or Sigmund, I can't remember his name, of Katarina the Onion fella in the first, and you first meet him and you're sure, you're like, yeah, that's perfect. That's all you want to hear. You want to be able to hear that real stuff.
Can we like can someone do an add-on that like removes toddy voice acting?
See, that's the thing, right? Because
nothing against the voice actor. Again, it's about direction. It's about the processing of the audio. There's a lot of things, and I guess it's a bit weird that this all came from us talking about Mets and stuff. But there is sort of, I actually do think there's a through line. It's bizarre. Like, Metzen acting Thrall, it's quite strange because you can really tell that Metzen's not an actor. Yeah. Like, you know, Thrall is not being done by an actor, and it's a bit weird because it feels like semi-amateur but with a lot of heart, and then it ends up having enough texture that it's cool. It's
just a man being very throaty, like, but it's always worked. It's always worked because they've had that. Like, maybe it's because like the orc voice is just the idea of it, just, oh yeah, that's a really cool gravelly tone. So it's like whenever humans are there, but even like the cooler sounding humans are like the older ones, because it was I was recently like listening to like Varian lines again. I was like, Varian sounds pretty cool, but that's because Varian's is going for, well, you're the human counterpart to Thrall here. So he goes for that, like, that kind of I'm an old fucking wrecked man who's seen loads of war kind of vibe. And that stuff's easy, but the more, or like, not, I don't say easy to discredit, but like that's the stuff that's like clear creatively that will go down well. Whereas everything else seems to need a little bit more, put a little bit more juice into this, just a little bit more effort, put a little bit of more. So I think that's the problem with a lot of
Yggdrasil
voice
mentioned
stuff.
Tyrion. That's another great example.
Yeah.
Bernard Hill.
Yep.
Right.
Actor.
So Bernard Hill, like, I don't want to say true actor in a way that downplays VA. I think sometimes a lot of anime and video game voice actors just, I don't know if it's a self-direction problem, but goddamn you.
It's
but like
yeah.
Bernard Hill, like, I mean, if you don't know that name, Theoden in Lord of the Rings. There's a good example. And yeah, like it all really worked for that character in Wrath of the Lich King.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's weird. Funny, there's Matt saying, or no, you're Matt, that's Greg, about Laura Bailey doing like really good stuff in Critical Role.
Yeah.
It's like she gets typecast.
See,
probably that's a big issue.
That's where except once this, a lot of complaints from voice actors, because I will absolutely be in, obviously in the context of being the public, I'm trying not to do this, but in private, I will rail on them all the time.
Oh, yes.
Because I'm not trying to be fair and nuanced, I'm just sort of giving an opinion. But a lot of the time, like, I'll see anytime that discussion comes up on like Twitter or something of why are these voice actors all clearly so shit? And then the answer is, listen, we know our performances as they get to you aren't that great. That's because of X, Y, Z, etc. And most of them is like, we don't know the context for scenes. I'm sure Blizzard do those way better. But a lot of like AAA games are like, we don't know context for scenes. We're given lines and like a couple takes to do them because obviously we're charged by, the union stuff is charged by time. So we go in, we're like, hey, we don't know context. We don't have a lot of time with the director or any other people. We don't get to do like group scenes together. We just go in and go, here's your microphone, here's your lines, give them, roughly try to do it like this, and then they'll do it. Will that work? Yeah, it'll do fine. As opposed to, I guess when it's, okay, well, that doesn't really match. Hey, director, what's the full context for this? What's going to happen to my character after this? What just happened to my character before this? So I can give a good, like, full read. What's my relationship to the character that I'm speaking this to? A lot of that stuff seems to be a little bit missing overall. And it seems that if you, like, obviously our thesis here of being experienced and having self-direction and being able to get the info with a lot less time involved seems to make the people who are more traditional theater actors do better.
Troy Baker's amazing, but he hasn't really been in anything since The Last of Us. Oh, he's been in plenty.
Oh, that's just because he's doing 40, 100 million different things. But
Yeah.
if you, Troy Baker's another example where and this isn't Troy Baker's fault, but I hate hearing Troy Baker's voice. Every time I hear it, same with Nolan North, I'm just like, are there no other voice actors, or can no one else actually, like, can you not change your voice? And that's the thing about, like, you get Troy Baker.
Joel's the iconic one.
Yeah, but you get Troy Baker, and what do you do? You bring Troy Baker and you say, well, we've paid for Troy Baker. We've paid for Laura Bailey. We want people to know they're Troy Baker and Laura Bailey. And we can't really put it on the box because that's a bit celebrity voice actor for an animated movie tier. We don't want to do that. So what do? I'll just make them sound, yeah, we like the way you sounded there. Can you do that again? And that's the part of like
I'm just
lack of
imagining-
creativity.
Wow, expansion with like some strange little creature voiced by Eddie Murphy flying around you.
Yeah. Oh, Steve Blum. Yeah, Steve Blum's another one where I love Steve Blum's voice, and I think Steve Blum's a good enough actor that Neon White would have half the accolades it does if not for Steve Blum voicing the main character. But it is just you listen, you go, oh yeah, there's Steve Blum. Yep. I remember Toonami from the 90s. I know Steve Blum perfectly well. And there's a lot of voice acting is weird that way. Oh yeah, Matt Mercer. Matt Mercer's another good example of that, where you just go, could you get Matt Mercer in and say, hey, Matt Mercer, could you do a voice that's not exactly Matt Mercer just for a second? Because it seems they all just say, do the one that people know you for. And that's frustrating. I'm sure they're tired of hearing this.
No, we've worked it out, Matt. We actually have to just go full the normal direction. Whoever the jailer is afraid of should be voiced by Chris Pratt.
Exactly.
Because not only would that be perfectly thematic about him apparently just accidentally becoming the heel of the industry, somebody mentioned previously Martin Sheen as Nosdormu. Mm-hmm. Now that is the most phoned in piece of shit acting I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Martin Sheen is an exquisite actor. It's funny. It's funny stuff. Yeah, I suppose like it's just the sort of thing that is, I mean, it's important to me in the same way that music is.
Music is so underrated.
And,
it's insane.
I mean, a good example, whenever we were doing the add-on thingy, WoW Tales, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think we kind of got from local theater actors that Thomas happened to know, like, in many cases, better performances than stuff that Blizzard had done. And it's just because these people have acted in a play together in many cases. They're like, not only are they, you know, Thomas's friends, people that he knows, but also Thomas is a theater director of multiple plays, writer of multiple plays, and has directed many of the people we had doing VO for us in multiple, you know, plays, right? So, yeah, it's like, it feels like that whole thing gets missing when it's just go in and read your lines.
Yeah, and that's like a production problem as opposed to any other
like
problem.
The person shouldn't be the person who's like, say, the voice director. You know, it's okay to be the voice director, but at the very least, like, I want the creative director in there. I want it's like it's like shooting a movie, but your director is not there to direct the scenes.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes in a movie you can really tell like what stuff was just thrown off to a second unit. I guess the issue sometimes in something like World of Warcraft is it all feels like second unit. So anyway, that's a bit of a weird ramble, I suppose, about voice acting, which really is about us talking about what we would maybe characterize as a degree of overpolish. Certainly when I think about a lot of my friends, say a lot of the people who work in the game side of our organization, you know, they would certainly be people who would be quite sensitive to the sorts of criticisms that we've said, and would find that to be a reason not necessarily to pick up the game, because they're quite fantasy-driven people.
Yes.
And I think there's quite a lot of people like that, which overall is to say one of the next things on the revamp block, I believe, should be whatever Blizzard's relationship is with their voice talent, whatever the production process is. We cannot have situations where pivotal plot moments feel like just actors reading lines. They need to work out how to do group sessions. I'll give them a little bit of an, you know, maybe if anyone at Blizzard was hearing this, they could actually just be seething to fuck, because they're just like, have you ever heard of the novel coronavirus and California rules? So it actually could be a degree of that, where maybe they were not able to do those, those group reads, right? Because what like the gold standard is that your actors can do a group read. When we think about the games that have really pushed the medium forward from a narrative execution perspective, in many cases, those are motion captured actors.
Yeah, that's the whole thing about like you watch some of the behind the scenes of like a God of War or something, and you see like, oh well, you know, Chris Judge was the people say, you know, the people think, oh, the voice actor behind Kratos, but is the actor behind Kratos, because that game got delayed because he was injured for so long. And then that's why he was like, he pushed through it, and, you know, he got surgery and healing stuff to do it. But I was like, oh no, that's a lot of that is because they were like fully actors, which is less the case in World of Warcraft, but still like super. The whole thing applies across like.
Yeah. And really, especially with there's lots of different ways that a play can be staged, you know, styles of, of theater. But the whole thing where you're in a mocap suit and you all look a bit silly, that's actually fine for loads of theater actors. Completely fine. And that sort of thing, you know, they'll do all their warm-ups together as a team. They can start going through scenes together, and there's physicality in it. You know, they're in the space, and perhaps if they're a theater actor, they are used to clearly not being on a perfect set of the location that they're in. Yep. You hear quite a few people, if you maybe get like film, TV, theater people who then go and do that style of mocap work in games, they're like, oh yeah, this is just like theater and it's really fun.
Yep. Yeah, I think we do have a super from Goblins saying, did you know Young is the voice of Enrico Pucci in Stone Ocean? I haven't watched the second season of that, nor would I watch the English dub. But yeah, I've heard Young actually does a great bit of voice acting, which is nice. There's a couple of like, you see people who are breaking into the industry kind of recently and are giving it really like full, like, I guess the mixture between they're going for strong dubbing roles, but like in anime, but they're also like training on like, I guess trained to be like cartoon voice actors. Because I remember Young's voice reel was like really interesting, going, holy shit, you can sound like a lot of different things. So I imagine everyone has that talent. It's just about how the directors actually fully direct them.
I mean, imagine if Gollum, and this is just people bringing up Andy Serkis. Imagine if Gollum was just VO. And same with Smaug.
Yeah.
Like, does Benedict Cumberbatch look pretty ridiculous slithering around the floor as a dragon?
He looks good as hell, though. That was impressive.
And then, you know, those are very flawed movies, but you cannot, you can't knock Cumberbatch's performance as Smaug, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've only watched some of the behind the scenes of that, seeing him like literally slithering around the floor and going, no, that is acting, giving it your all, like, absolutely.
And it's the sort of thing where, you know, if that was a theater production and he was just literally slithering around the floor, his physicality and his voice was enough that I'd be like, fuck it,
hell yeah,
I believe you're a dragon now.
Yeah, go for it.
Killing Love did say, I don't know how mocap really helps gaming experience that much. Maybe it saves the animators some time, but I don't know. So mocap, honestly, often mocap looks terrible. And this is a funny thing between like the physicality required by theater actors versus film and television actors, where, you know, when you're in theater, like people are far away from you. So you have to be quite broad in your movements and stuff like that. Whenever you just see raw mocap thrown into a game, like obviously it'll never be raw. That data has to be cleaned up and processed. And, you know, a lot of shit happens before it goes into engine. People often think of mocap as being like, don't need an animation department. Just put some dots and balls on the actor, done. No, it doesn't work like that. And indeed, whenever Andy Serkis calls it digital makeup or whatever, it is true to say that while Andy gives a fantastic performance, he absolutely throws his animators under the bus, and that is certainly one of those things where I have a great deal of respect for Andy Serkis. I also am quite troubled by how he talks about the people who enable his digital performances, because they, in just as many ways, are the artists actually executing on things. You'll have Andy Serkis's face to use as a reference, but stuff will be hand animated. If you look at The Last of Us, I don't know for 2, but at least for 1, it was motion capture, not performance capture. All of the facial things, they had cameras pointing at the actors' faces, but that was so the animators could hand animate them and use the actors' performances as a reference, because they would know that in many cases they might actually have to dial the performance up a little bit to actually make it work in the game. So, it's one of those things. There's a lot of I love this whole thing. In case you
it's really
tell,
interesting.
it's fascinating.
As someone who's been a lifelong weeb, very interested in voice acting and the debates surrounding it. Especially, because we had that moment recently, or not recently, a while ago now, where I went and watched some of like some parts of some of Endwalker in Japanese and going, oh my god, this Japanese voice acting is so much worse. This is
terrible.
So much stock. Why are some of these characters like just off the shelf performances and off the shelf stuff? Yeah,
Vana's just a default mum from an anime.
Yeah, and that's really frustrating. Because I know someone, I can't remember, someone mentioned it's like one of the problems with Japanese voice acting is that, because obviously a lot of the thing of a lot of the voice acting debate is, it's so much better in Japanese, and some of that's true, and I can say this quite clearly because I was literally watching Dumbbell recently, and it's just oh my god, I can't remember the production company name. Shit. And I love all their stuff too. Anyway.
You've just lost weeb points.
Yeah, there's that many studio names, I forget them all. They also did New Game. But they do a lot of like 4-koma and comedy manga stuff. And you can tell because they're not serious, they have a lot more kind of fun. And you see like some shonen shows or some like generically popular shows. And you go, oh, that's like a stock off the shelf. Oh, get that actor to do this performance. But then sometimes in comedy stuff, you go, they're allowed to let rip and do whatever they want. And that can be a lot more fun. I think the same kind of goes in games in the West, where it's like, you're allowed to like have loads of fun and really bring who you are as an actor to the table with really like smart and interesting direction, and then you get a more creative and enjoyable output, as opposed to we've got like a week to get this voice together. You do the voice you're known for, get it done another way. Yeah, that seems to be the problem more than anything else.
Yeah, and in so many cases, these people are, they are great actors, right? Like, I mean, there's examples of Laura Bailey doing, better VO than she does for Jaina in Critical Role.
Yeah.
As somebody was saying there, and it's like, that's going to be down to like self-direction, the circumstances of, of the session, just, all that. And I know that this seems like a massive tangent, and in many ways this is a massive tangent, but I really do think that, compare the typical English anime VO version of FF14, like Endwalker, versus the one that we got, where it was more not games industry, actors who are used to radio plays, theater, and television. I mean, it would be a night and day difference, and a lot of that would be because of, I think, texture. And whenever I think people get excited about the idea of Metzen coming back, it's because there's a degree of that imperceptible texture that people want to return to the world. I think people are happy with the more emotionally nuanced and maybe more emotionally intelligent storytelling that's happening now. I think that if you then can mix that in with that level of gruff, excited, actually epic, rather than we've wrote an epic scene and then some people went into a box and delivered some lines, which is how some of the things feel right now. I think that's the sort of thing that gets us to those, Draenor is free or whatever, to those sorts of performances that are the ones that stand out.
Indeed.